Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. My name is Jeff Allen, as you all know, and tonight, once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good, translated as Foundation of All Good Qualities, begging for a mountain of blessings. It's so awesome. We get to look at this over and over again. We get to try to pull the great treatise of the stages of the path to enlightenment and all kinds of other texts by the great Nalanda Pandits out of each of those stanzas. So it's been really fun and helpful for me to try to coordinate all of these things and looking at the different pathways and different points that Lama Tsongkhapa is trying to make in this very, very short poem. So before we get into any explanation, let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, which is done in order for us to clear our minds. It says that this supporting posture makes it so that our winds flow and our blood flows properly and that everything's aligned in a very, very good way. And once we get used to being able to do it physically, when our mind has the ability to meditate for longer periods of time, our physical posture won't impede that and will actually serve as a support to allow our minds to get to where we want them to go. So we start with this posture because so many of the great masters have given that advice to do so. And I found that, definitely in my practice, when I get my back straight, when I'm sitting in a meditative posture and I'm, doing whatever, I'm doing in my meditation, if I'm slumping down, I find that a sense of clarity definitely occurs when I straighten the vertebrae. It says the vertebrae should be like a stack of coins in the explanation of the 7-point Vairocana posture. And from what I hear, this is one of the most important points in that posture is that straight vertebrae. If we can physically do it, let's get into all 7 points. But if any of those points are physically difficult for you or they cause your mind to be more distracted by the physical points, then discard them. This is all about how are we going to change our mind and do so as rapidly as possible. And if the physical posture we could get into would help us support getting to a place of clarity and getting to a place of shamatha and vipassana quicker, then of course we want to do that. But it doesn't mean that we can't get to those places without this posture. So I just want to make that clear. So we're going to get into the 7-point Vairocana posture, making sure that our back is straight, and then the other 6 points we know about. So let's do that. And we're going to begin, as we always do, by breathing in and out and counting the breath. So breathing in through the nose, bringing the breath all the way to the top, meaning filling the lungs and the diaphragm, and then gently turning it around in a very natural fashion and exhaling. And as we exhale, we'll count 1. So we're going to do cycles of breathing. So we're going to, count 1, then count 2, then count 3. So this will be our focal object that we're going to make sure that our mind is only focused on. So when we do this kind of meditation, we focus on a really specific focal object, and we tell our mind that's all we're going to look at. And we're going to also add a 4th thing. So we have breathing in, breathing out, counting, so that's 3 things. And then the 4th thing will be the front generation image of Buddha Shakyamuni, about an arm length away, eye height, about the size of your thumb, maybe 2 inches or so. And just imagining Buddha Shakyamuni beautiful and radiant in a static posture, though. You don't want it to be moving around because we're trying to, when we do fixed meditation, when we, take a virtuous focal object, we need that virtuous focal object to be in a static position because we don't want it to cause anything that would keep us from being able to singly focus on that one thing. So in this case, we're doing a few things and we're getting our minds used to doing what we tell them to do. And the breath allows us to kind of get ourselves back to a natural, realistic place where we could grow virtue from, where we could set a good motivation from. And plus it gives us a little bit of a taste of how to meditate. We get into this 7-point Vairocana posture. We focus on the breath. counting of the breath. We find this right in Namdru Lajong and Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, and so many other great texts. Asanga's text, we find breathing being the focal object, and the natural breathing in and out, and the watching of the breath and so forth. So we're going to use that, and then also the image of Shakyamuni, because once we can fix on an object of virtue like Buddha Shakyamuni, not only are we telling our minds what to do and getting them calmer and calmer and calmer and more singly focused, we're focusing on something that allows us to accumulate virtue, accumulate merit, and so forth. And all these things will be necessary in order for us to achieve Buddhahood, because we know that Manjushri, when Lama Tsongkhapa couldn't figure out emptiness in the full way, was told to make supplications to the Lama, who's inseparable from the Yidam, and then accumulate merit, purify misdeeds, and then get more wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation through relying on the Nalanda masters. So we're going to try to mimic what the great masters do, so that then we become great masters. Because the key that they hold is the key we will hold once we realize what they've realized, and their realizations become our realizations. Not the same consciousness, we have a separate consciousness, but the wisdom is wisdom. And when we realize wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the realizing the lack of objective existence of phenomena, once we realize the lack of inherent existence, the wisdom that we have in our mind, that realization, once we get it to its most final point, is the same realization that everyone has, that is a holy being, the same realization that Buddha Shakyamuni has. The wisdom realizing emptiness is the wisdom realizing emptiness. The lack of objective existence, the lack of inherent existence, because things dependently originate, is the same fact that you will have to come to the conclusion in your mind of. So, let's do the things that Lama Tsongkhapa was told to do to make that happen. So let's focus on those four things: breathing in and out, the counting, and then Buddha Shakyamuni in the front generation. And then we'll go from there. We're all so fortunate. We're here tonight, and we're focusing on Buddha Shakyamuni. We're doing so because we know how great Buddha Shakyamuni was, eliminating all negative qualities and only having excellent qualities, eliminating the afflictive obstructions and the cognitive obscurations, or the obstructions to omniscience. A being who has complete purity, perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, perfect skillful means, perfect power. And all of those realizations that this being has are realizations that we will have. We will achieve the state of omniscience. All sentient beings will achieve the state of omniscience. That state of perfection that was brought about by maturing the same kind of mental consciousness that we currently have. The only difference is that we haven't matured our mental consciousness. We haven't removed the adventitious stains, those defilements, the grasping at the I and phenomena as being truly established. We haven't gotten rid of that. We currently have the afflictions that are making our mind so dirty, and not the pure mind that the Buddha possesses. But our mind will mature into the state of purity, because our mind lacks inherent existence, just like the Buddha's mind lacks inherent existence. The nature of our mind is the exact same nature of the Buddha's mind, that emptiness of inherent existence. The clear light mind that we possess, that indestructible clear light mind, is the same pure, indestructible clear light mind that the Buddha has. We just simply haven't matured it. So we're so fortunate that we're here tonight, maturing, figuring out a way to go from the state where we are right now, that sullied state, that mind that has the afflictions and all of these attachments and hatred, and ignorance and prides and so forth. To us, we can take this mind that has all of this and transform it into the pure mind of the Buddha. So we're so fortunate. So before we get started, let's do praise to Buddha Shakyamuni. We're so fortunate to be able to hear his teachings. And when we read this praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, we see these qualities that Buddha Shakyamuni possesses. And these qualities are qualities that we will possess. So when we read this praise, we think about all of the qualities that are being presented, and we say to ourselves, do I have those qualities? Do I have that quality? And if no, it's okay, because we will. And recognize that through the paths, through the process that Buddha Shakyamuni has shown us we need to go through, we can achieve all of these qualities that Buddha Shakyamuni has. So praise to Buddha Shakyamuni, to the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, oh, supreme amongst humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strives and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who were wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, from supremely pure wisdom ocean, like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free, like you the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the Tathagata I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime, pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the Sangha, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foal of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Come on, you got it. Okay. Sorry, everyone. So now imagine from the very static image of Buddha Shakyamuni you had in front of you that there's an explosion that takes place. And Buddha Shakyamuni now is no longer static, is smiling and radiant and very active. And imagine that explosion made the entire merit field occur in the space in front of you. Almost like a firework went off from Buddha Shakyamuni, and then suddenly the entire merit field was in front of you. Imagine all the holy gurus, Buddhas, and bodhisattvas there. Imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Khenser Geshe Wandak. We all knew him so well. So happy that, we'd be so happy that we're here tonight. Looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good. Imagine him just in the space in front of us, just smiling, so happy, imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Demalocha Rinpoche and Geshe Dorje Damdu and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin Lag and Umzala Geshe Aga, imagining Jeffrey Hopkins and Lama Alan Wallace, imagining any beings you consider holy beings, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, All these holy beings imagining in the space in front of you, the lamas and so forth. Imagine the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Maitreya, from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya, to Asanga and Vasubandhu, and Dharmakirti and Dignaga, and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra, and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha, and Lama Salimpa there, imagining that holy being we find in both of the lineages of bodhicitta, the extensive deeds and profound view that pass that lineage of bodhicitta on to Lord Atisha. Imagining Lord Atisha's right there in the extensive deeds lineage, smiling and so happy. The producer of this concept of the teachings for beings of three capacities, this holy being that put these teachings into an order that we could understand and took all of these lineages and put them together. So we imagine Lord Atisha is there. In the extensive deeds lineage, now we imagine the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri, to Nagarjuna and Buddhapalita, and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shantideva and Kamalashila and Chandrarashita and Bhavavega, imagining all these holy beings of the profound view lineage in the space in front of you. And again, Salimpa is there, receiving that exchanging self and others teaching found in that profound view lineage of achieving the mind that aspires to enlightenment. And then Lama Atisha there as well. Now imagining Drone Tompa there, and the three Kadampa lineages there. Imagining all the holy beings of the Nyingma Kaju Sakya and Galupa, imagining Padmasambhava and Sakya Pandita and the Karmapas, imagining Lama Tsongkhapa, and imagining Kirtupje and Jelsupje and Panchen Sonandrapa and Janja Rupi Dorje and Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, all these holy beings, Basu Chuji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, all in the space in front of you, as many as you can imagine, all so happy, imagining the deities of the highest Yoga Tantra, Yogic Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, 35 Buddhas, the protector beings, the protectors of the small scope, medium scope, and great scope. Imagining Palden Lama is there. All of these beings we're so connected to because Khensur Geshe Wandak was so kind to us. Imagine the profound blessings lineages, the lineage of blessings passed down from Lord Vajradhara and the masters like Saraha and Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa. That holy lineage that looked at the mind and saw the nature of the mind so clearly. We're so blessed to know about these beings and imagining them in space in front of you. Now imagine that you invite all beings to be your guest. Imagining that you're bringing all the hell beings, hungry ghost beings, animals, humans, demigods and gods. Imagining you're bringing them all here because you're here in order to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering and to have happiness and the causes of happiness. And you recognize that all sentient beings are equally important and that cherishing others more than yourself is the key to your happiness. And what you can do, how you can cherish others this evening is by bringing them here to this teaching. So imagine that you've done so, and you've done so because you want them to be happy. You want them to be free from suffering. And this begins your journey, if you aren't already a bodhisattva, to becoming a bodhisattva by planting these seeds in your mind of being able to help all sentient beings, wanting to help all sentient beings. So don't leave any out. Even imagine beings who are much higher realizations than you are right now, being led here so that they can finish whatever it is they need to finish in order to achieve fearlessness and infinite happiness. So imagining now that we have all sentient beings here, we have all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas in the space in front of you. So happy that we're finally doing something all together, all at once, that will cause us all, every single sentient being, to achieve fearlessness and infinite happiness. And it's very unlikely that all at once sentient beings would be together and would be listening to this holy Dharma. And right now it's happening. So just imagine the bliss that would go over the entire merit field by seeing such a thing take place. And with that in mind, let's recite the Heart Sutra. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way. Seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. Te ata ongate gate Bharagade Bharazangadi Bodhisvadyata Om Gate Gate Bharagate 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 Bharazangadi Bodhisvadyata. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Gala jube ne jo damba ne ngushe du chu nga yi du do jen dru ba ba la ma yi bu jin zi ne zung gandro zo la sha tse lo aga samara de shana ra samara ya be aga samara. Agasamara Jashandara Samara Be, Theata Ongate, Paragate, Parasangati, Buddhiso, Papa Conchusanji Kai, Dimiduji, Lobodoji, Mebodoji, Shewadoji, Dragi Baji, Medabeja, Danji, Dengoria Zoa, Getting George Shewa, Midun Bejan, Andra, Dantumba, Jin Bunsun Georgi, Dashi de Jade, Dale Show. Okay. Now I'll make a mandala offering as a request for teaching, offering that perfect, beautiful universe with perfectly happy beings residing in it, and offering that as a request for teaching to the teacher all the way back, though, to Buddha Shakyamuni in terms of lineage. So we're really, when we think about the merit field and we think about all those names and we think about all those beings, we're really making the mandala offering all the way through them as well, because this teaching couldn't have taken place without the names just mentioned. All those names that we go through about the profound view lineage, extensive deeds lineage, and lineage of blessings, and the tantric lineages and the protectors and so forth. This teaching couldn't go on without those beings, in our world or having been in our world, etc. So we make this request for teaching. We offer this perfect, beautiful universe to all of those beings who help us to have fearlessness and infinite happiness. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain. The teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jewel mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Rana Mandala Gam Niradayami. Zanje Jadan Jaje Janan La Shanju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chisheji Bezananji Drala Benji Zanje Drubajo Sanje Jadan Jaje Janan La Shanju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Chisheji Bezananji Drala Benji Zanje Drubajo Zanje Jadan Jaje Janan La Shanju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jujeji Bezunanji Drola Benji Zanje Drubarjo Lama La Jazujio Zanje La Jazujio Chu La Jazujio Gendun La Jazujio. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings, as it says in the prayer of noble conduct, the Sanchim Mula. Hey everybody, here we are again. We're all breathing and able to hear the teaching, so rejoice. So many beings don't have this opportunity that we have tonight. And, we have to look at, we see this terrible thing that happened in Syria with this earthquake, and so many people passed away just like that. And we see, as, in India, we were watching a movie about some trekkers and how they were showing a video of people who had come from afar. I don't remember all the details, but come from all around, in order to experience this get together that happened, once a year or something. And the entire village the next morning was all gone, wiped away. And just like that, we can lose our lives. And it doesn't mean that we did something irresponsible. It just, death will come and nothing can stop it. We have no idea when that's going to happen. And the only thing that can help us is Dharma. And I think about that. I think about, how sad it is, to just, no matter what, just die prematurely. But how sad it is to die prematurely, unprepared to die. And that is what keeps me coming to a meditation cushion and to books that I find extremely complex and tenet systems that break my brain. And I wonder if I know anything about Buddhism after I read them. A couple days of class, at the Nalanda Master's course, going through tenet systems in the mind-only school. And it's funny, we think of the mind-only school, because tonight we're talking a little bit about origin of suffering, so that deals with the origin of suffering. You have to know is grasping at things incorrectly. And when we study, Buddhism, and we have, really qualified teachers, they race us right to, that higher view, and we kind of take it for granted a little bit with some syllogisms and with some, simplistic ways of looking at, dependent origination and cause and effect. But when you start to really, put the acid test there to your view, and you look at the views that we would say are the lower tenets below, the middle way consequence view that Rinpoche was so kind to share with us, and share tenets with us a little bit too. But when I now go back and look at the tenets, and I see how in depth they are, and I see how the mind-only school's views are so necessary as a platform. All of them are, but you see the mind-only school view and how this imprints or projections and all these things operate, and how necessary it is to understand, and how hard the distinctions are to make as you get to the higher views. And if the distinctions are hard to make, if there is grasping, you don't have the view. So if that distinction can't be made in some subtle way, and you're adhering, and it sounds pretty good to me, like when you're reading at the end of the Lamrim Chemo, you're not sure what's the objection and what's the truth sometimes. If it sounds pretty good to me, if there's grasping, you don't have the view. And the view is the only thing that cuts the root of cyclic existence. The liberating path, the only liberating path. We have ripening paths, renunciation and bodhicitta and all these other things and accumulations and so forth. But the only thing that cuts that root of cyclic existence, that liberating path, is the correct view of emptiness. And not almost the correct view of emptiness, the correct view of emptiness. And being able to fire off some points but not be able to justify them becomes quite scary. If you know what Shantideva says in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, if it's emptiness that frees us, what else is there to do? And he's talking to bodhisattvas who know about ripening paths and so forth. But, for a bodhisattva, what else is there to do but realize emptiness? If it's the thing that frees you, if it's the liberating path, what else do you have to do in this life? But find a way to see emptiness directly. That should be, seeing emptiness is the only way to freedom, Shantideva says. So what else do you have to do? So I've been, trying to see, could I see emptiness? Because to see emptiness, you have to have the wisdom arisen from hearing, hear the right thing, and then have heard it right, and then analyze the right thing. So do I have the right thing? Am I analyzing the right thing? Is my object of negation correct? Do I know what I keep asking? What's the basis of designation? Because it sounds like, we have, this basis of designation that's suitable to be named this, and then we name it. And through the power of that name, We name a basis of designation. What's the basis of designation? If a hungry ghost sees pus and I see water, what's the basis of designation? What is it? Mind-only school says there's externalities. There's no externality. There's an emptiness of externality. But that's not right, Madhyamaka says. There's externality. What? That's the question we should all be asking. Like, what's the object of negation? Jeffrey Hopkins says the object of negation is the objects, the flower of the flower. The objective existence of flower. You don't have to add anything on. You don't have to put any horns on it. Grow something more onto the flower if you're using a flower. You're negating the objective existence of the flower, but somehow there's externality. What's the basis of designation? And this is the question that, I just keep asking myself, and I think a lot of people have asked themselves that. And I heard another teaching like, that's great. Okay, so the table's a collection of parts, and it doesn't become a table until I name it. So I go into meditative absorption on emptiness. So now, I'm only perceiving the lack of inherent existence, right? I'm perceiving an absence of something. So while I'm doing that, there's no subjectively conventional table. So while I'm over there doing that, what's the table? What's the basis of designation? If a hungry ghost could see pus and I can see water and a god sees nectar, what is it? So why is this all important? Why is this conversation at all important? That's what we're going to get into tonight. So this important conversation is the thing Buddha Shakyamuni was worried about when he became a Buddha. He was worried about how am I going to, with all of these different types of minds, and people who were ready to hear this and not ready to hear that, how am I going to explain what I've realized? And that's what the second turning of the wheel of Dharma presents. That's what the Buddha realized. But he doesn't present that right away. He doesn't present the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena until the second turning of the wheel of Dharma. He actually says that the Four Noble Truths are truly established in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. So he sees exactly what we need to know. He has this wisdom that gets rid of the ignorance that causes all of our problems, and then says, oh my gosh, this is so subtle, this is so complex, that what will I do? How will I even teach? What would I say? Now, of course, the Buddha's omniscient, so the Buddha knows what to say. But we see in this kind of point that's being made in the sutras about the Buddha and the reason for this point. It says, the Buddha says, profound, peaceful, elaboration-free, clear light, non-composite. Non-composite meaning, not impermanent, permanent. Such is the nectar-like Dharma I've discovered, finding no one who can fathom this teaching. In silence, I will retire to the woods. And then Indra and Brahma come and say, please turn the wheel of Dharma, it'll be okay. And then Buddha Shakyamuni turns the wheel of the Dharma of the Four Noble Truths, but doesn't present in an explicit way in that teaching, the final view of emptiness. Yes, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths a lot of different times in a lot of different places. But if we look traditionally at that first turning of the wheel of Dharma, and we find really what the Buddha was saying, to the students, he was speaking from terms of the lower school's view, where they really just posit the, subtle and coarse selflessness of person, not phenomena. A person's phenomena, but, we divide it into selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena. And initially, there's only a speech about the selflessness of person. being given by the Buddha. The Buddha says, this is the origin of suffering, and then points at something that's not even, the full way, if interpreted it according to the first turning of the wheel of Dharma. But why would the Buddha do such a thing? Because there are varying personalities and types of continuums, and most of us, if we're honest, need a gradual process to that final view. It's very easy to say, well, that was for the lesser vehicle, for the Hinayanists, and I don't really need that. But the way that you see it explained in the tenet systems, and the way Geshe Dorje Damdu explained it, is that the tenets are like steps that get you to this ultimate view. And the first step is kind of the closest to what everyone else thinks. It's closest. It's the thing that you could leap from what everybody kind of thinks to, wow, that kind of makes sense. So when we look at it in terms of, the impermanence that was taught, and trying to find a self with impermanence, and it's always changing, and then the rapidity of this impermanence is even ramped up from the Vibhashika school to the Sautrantika school. We see that first that, this impermanence isn't like so fast. And then you get to Sautrantika and it's just moving so fast. It's just moving so quickly. There's just this momentary nature that's going on. That's just moving so quickly. We first see this positing of there's not a permanent, independent, singular, independent self. We see that there isn't this, lack of a permanent, independent, singular, self. And then the Buddha says, well, there's a lack, that's the kind of coarse selflessness, unitary, independent self, singular, independent self. This thing that's moving. There's not this singular independence of a self of person. He says there's no, then goes a little deeper and says, the kind of subtle selflessness of person is the emptiness of this, autonomous, substantial kind of self, And then the Buddha ramps it up in the Chittamantran school and says, no, emptiness is emptiness of externality, And then ramps it up and says, no, that, emptiness is the lack of true existence, but I'm not going to negate inherent existence. And then the Buddha says, nothing inherently exists. So you can see how you could take steps, on your way. You get to the Chittamantran school and you show there's just subjectivity. But Madhyamika says, yes, it's subjectivity, but there's external reality. It's not that everything is only mind. Who or what created the three realms of mind? Yes, but it's not all mind and only mind. There's externality. So if figuring out what all of that means is going to be the only thing that cuts the root of cyclic existence, we need to figure out what that is. So, how do we go about doing that? Well, we find it very clearly presented when we look at the Four Noble Truths. We look at the truth of suffering, the truth of origin of suffering. The Buddha says the origin of suffering is first, there's this grasping at I and phenomena as being truly established. Then some kind of inappropriate attention is made, and then comes afflictions, and then contaminated karmas, and then we have samsara. And we see that in Nagarjuna's text, where he says that ceasing of a karma and afflictions leads to nirvana. Karma and afflictions arise from conceptual thought. These arise from the grasping at true existence. Elaboration ceases by emptiness. So Nagarjuna says right there that from the grasping at I and phenomena as being truly established, it comes this kind of inappropriate attention, this conceptual thought, and then comes afflictions, and then comes the karmas, and so forth. that the contaminated karmas that then lead to the suffering of cyclic existence. So if that is the origin of suffering, then we need to figure out how to get rid of it. And if we want to, if Buddha says that, the next thing the Buddha says is you can, suffering can go away. This is the truth of cessation. The Buddha says that, because suffering is a result, and now I've shown you what's causing it. If you abandon that thing that's causing the suffering, the result, then you'll have a cessation of suffering because there won't be anything to cause it. If you don't have a seed, no sprout can occur. If you don't have a grasping at I and phenomena as being truly established, even if you have karma that could give rise to some type of suffering, it won't work. It says right in the Lam Rinpoche. If you don't have this grasping, even if you have the karma, there's nothing to ignite cyclic existence. So if there's no attachment, Rinpoche always said, how do you know if you're going to have a new rebirth? Well, do you have attachment? If there's attachment, then you're going to, right? So the afflictions, so where does the attachment come from? Grasping an I and phenomena as being truly established. Where's aversion come from? You could say from attachment, but it comes from the grasping an I as being truly established. This ignorance. What is the ignorance that we talk about in the three poisons? What does that mean? That's that, we have attachment, we have aversion, and then we have neutrality. Neutrality is just sitting dumb. Sitting and believing that chair and that sandal and this microphone has true objective existence, inherent existence, intrinsic existence, findable. So, how would we go about stopping that idea? Because if everything looks like it has this objective existence, how are we going to stop believing it? If everything looks like it has it, it's a pretty solid thing. And everyone agrees that it has it and thinks it has it. Thinks everything's objectively real out there. And that whatever I think it is, it definitely is. 100%. And I think it's definitely something I like, so I'm running towards it. And I think it's something I definitely hate, and I push it away. This makes me feel good, I run towards it. This makes me feel bad, I shun it. So, how do I stop doing that? Is the real question. So at the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, we find a little clue about that. So before I get started, in the tradition of Khenser Geshe Wandak, I'm just going to read a few of the stanzas from the beginning of Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Just for auspiciousness, and we know that the foundation of all good qualities, the source of all my good, encompasses these same points that the lamp for the path to enlightenment does. It shows the beings of three capacities in the source of all my good, in the Lamrim Duden, the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the Lamrim Din, the medium stages of the path to enlightenment, all talking about this same thing that Rinpoche was so kind to start so many teachings with. Maybe half the teachings he ever gave. He would, start with Atisha. And let's do that. So this is a lamp for the path to enlightenment. Atisha Dipamkara Shriyana. Homage to the Bodhisattva, the youthful Manjushri. I pay homage with great respect to all the victorious ones of the three times, to their teaching and to those who aspire to virtue. Urged by the noble disciple Shanchu, I shall illuminate the lamp for the path to enlightenment. So now we basically are going to, in 4 stanzas or so, summarize all of Buddha's teachings that the Buddha ever gave. Whether it was advice to ordinary people or tenets to yogis, we're going to now summarize everything the Buddha ever taught in 4 lines. Understand there are persons of, we can do it actually with one stanza, but then, let's get a little more meat on the bones and call it 4. So the one stanza is, understand there are 3 kinds of persons. Because of their small, middling, and supreme capacities, I shall write clearly, distinguishing their individual characteristics. So I think we've all heard that from Rinpoche once or twice. And then know that those who, by whatever means, seek for themselves no more than the pleasures of cyclic existence are persons of least capacity. So what are the pleasures of cyclic existence? High status. That's what Nagarjuna talks about. What do we have to do to get high status? 16 things. The 16 things that bring us high status. 10 of which are the ethics that abandon the 10 non-virtues. Those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from any worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. So that's the section we're on now. The teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity and the source of all my good. That's where we are. We're on the stanzas that pertain to that. Those who, through their personal suffering, truly want to end completely all the suffering of others are persons of supreme capacity. So there it is. All the teachings of Lord Buddha, whether it's, teachings that show you how to get a better next life in the small capacity, good high status, good stuff, happy samsara, or the teachings that the Buddha gave to show us how to achieve an abiding nirvana, an individual liberation, the certain goodness that Nagarjuna talks about at its lowest level, the Hinayana nirvana, the here and solitary realizer nirvana, an abiding nirvana, where the afflictive obstructions are removed. And then, if we want to achieve complete Buddhahood, then we have to engage in the Mahayana path. So, without more of that, let's go to the text. So, as usual, let's read up to where we are, just for auspicious reasons, because it's short, and why wouldn't we? It's probably easier if I just do it from our book. So Pabunka Rinpoche, of course, divides this into 4 categories. First category, finding the Lama. The second category, what you do once you find the Lama. So we're in the category of what to do once you find a Lama, and so forth. So let's read the text. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. So how to rely upon the teacher, how to find the teacher, how to rely on thought, how to rely on action, and then, a request for a blessing to be able to know that the teacher is the foundation of all good qualities from now on. And then this theme will continue on. Bless me to know from now on whatever the stanza says, and keep that in my mind as my primary focus, as my let it saturate my mind, so that my mind works like someone whose primary focus would be this stanza, works like someone who's realized this stanza. So just apply that kind of thinking now to the other stanzas as we read them. Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. And now we get into, so that section is how, advice on taking the essence of this life, Pabunka Rinpoche says. Now Pabunka Rinpoche says, now we get into how you take the essence of this life. And we start with the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity. Those teachings which show you, how to achieve high status, basically. How to achieve a good next life, a freedom from the lower realms of cyclic existence of the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then to ever be careful to stop the slightest wrongs, the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out each and every good of the many that we may. Now we get into the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity. So now we get into the section where we would be talking about the Four Noble Truths and the Buddha's intent of the Four Noble Truths, to end cyclic existence, to end the origin of suffering. Samsara is suffering, the 8 types of suffering, the 6 types of suffering, the 3 types of suffering. How do we get rid of that? And if we want to definitely emerge from that, we will have to want to definitely emerge from that which causes it. So the real renunciation, the subtle renunciation is renouncing. You're wanting to emerge from that view that grasps at I and phenomena as being truly established. Because it's only wanting to get out of that kind of thinking that will cause us to get out of samsara. So the only thing that, when we look at, oh man, I want to emerge, we think about renunciation, we think that renunciation is just, man, suffering stinks. But renunciation, when we look at what it really means, is renouncing what makes it stink. Because that's the smart thing. Because just saying, I want to get out of this, I want to be out, I got to be out, I hate it, that isn't really going to get you anywhere. And that's why you need that liberating path that's talked about. You need the truth of path, that fourth noble truth, in order to get out of the samsara, the 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, and 3 sufferings that you definitely don't want to have. And when you say, oh, I don't want to have that, and you say, oh, this is what causes that, and that doesn't have to happen, you have to figure out, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? I want to get out. What's it going to take to get out? It's going to take getting out of, wanting to emerge from this distorted thinking, this wrong thinking, this misperception, this thing that believes that that chair right there, is objectively real. That chair, has chairness, and it's all over there. And I feel like I'm just participating in the chair's world, in the microphone's world, in the computer's world. And, I'm just participant in it. And then, some of this stuff's mine that I participate around. And it's really interesting that we have to figure out how to fix that. Because as soon as you grasp at things as being objectively real, then the trouble starts. Because then you discriminate them in a way. You say, oh, there's that thing over there that I believe inherently exists. So, man, it's pretty. Man, it's ugly. And there it all starts. But it starts with this view that believes it has that objectivity. Because discriminating it as having this objective, real sense of ness starts the problem. Because if you didn't think it had that, what would there be to be attached to? What would there be to hate? What would there be to push away? What would there be to run to? What am I running at? I'm running at something I'm making into it? That doesn't make sense. And what is my running at it doing? Is it making me happy? No, when I have attachment, it's a state of mind that's disturbed. And is me seeing it? But let's not even, let's think about it. Is me seeing it as objectively real making me happy? Before I even run towards it or hate it? No, because my mind isn't in the state of truth. When, something's not quite right, just think about normal stuff, I don't know, something's just not quite right about the way that this is or that is. Well, something's not quite right all the time with everything. So subtly, your mind is always, you don't even necessarily notice it, but the mind is just always disturbed. The mind is always, something's just not quite right. The way I'm looking at everything isn't tallying with reality. So when things don't tally with reality, what about when someone tells you a lie? It's not quite right. You're telling yourself a lie. So your mind's abiding in this discontent. because something's just not quite right. I keep thinking this thing's objectively existent, then I become attached to it, and then I get it, and then it changes. I thought it was so great. I thought it made me so happy. It was the only thing that could make me happy. And then it changes because it got older. It just, it didn't meet my expectations anymore. I'm bored with it, or I'm separated from it because of one reason or another. We just believe these things. We tell ourselves this stuff. And this telling ourselves, this believing, this lie we tell ourselves leaves us in this state of discontent. Before we even get to being attached or being angry at something, we're just not, things just aren't right. That doesn't sound right. Well, our mind is sitting in this kind of weird place all of the time. Like if you put on a pair of glasses that were blue, and you were looking around, right? Like, I think it's just got a blue hue to it. That's just not quite right. Well, your mind isn't doing anything any differently. It's seeing the rope as a snake. It's seeing the chair as an objectively real chair that I'm ready to be attached or hate, to feel good about or feel bad about. This thing makes me feel good. This thing makes me feel bad. If it makes me feel good, let me go to it quicker. If it makes me feel bad, let me run away from it. What good? What goodness does it have to make me feel good? Where is its goodness if I'm subjectively creating it in some way? I'm making it all up from my own side and believing that it's making it up. I'm making it up, but I believe that the chair's making it up. So my mind sits in this funny place that's just ready to then have something appear and apprehend in a way that makes me run towards it or makes me run away from it. But this state of mind I've had since beginningless time. We can't find the beginning of it. There's no creator mind god or something like that started this cycle. We can't posit a beginning to this ignorance. Logically, this moment's ignorance, the previous moment's ignorance, who, what? It's just, and that's why samsara has no beginning. Samsara has no beginning because my ignorance has no beginning. Samsara has an end because my ignorance can have an end. But making that ignorance come to an end, this is the tricky part, because you don't only need to know the facts. Like, I could give you the facts, a set of facts that are sufficient, that a Geshe Larampa would say, that's silly, that's fine, all phenomena are not inherently existent because they dependently originate. They dependently originate in three ways: causes and conditions, wholes and parts, and through the power of designation. That's the Madhyamika Prasangika view. Do you think that just knowing that little thing I just said is going to make you not want stuff and hate stuff? Just knowing that little piece of information, has it worked thus far? Rinpoche told me that. I heard that well before Rinpoche. Well before I ever met Khenser Geshe Wandak, I heard that. I read that maybe, 2 months Buddhist. But has it really, did that little minor thing have the impact that it would need to have to break that cycle? So how do we go about getting to that? Well, we have to start out with ethics. We have to start there. So it says, bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. So here we're talking about, in this case, when we look at freedom, we're talking about the liberation where you would achieve an abiding nirvana. We're talking about the happiness of freedom. When we look at certain goodness, we know that there's the liberation, which is the lower liberation and the higher liberation of the Buddha. The lower liberation where you've only gotten rid of the afflictive obstructions and you're an abiding nirvana, and the high liberation where you get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, that the liberation of a Buddha. But right now we're talking about just getting rid of fear. Getting to a state of fearlessness, getting to a state where there's no afflictive obstructions. There's nothing causing 6 sufferings, 8 sufferings, 3 sufferings. There's nothing causing that. So there's a cessation of that mess. The buckets and the water wheel, all of that, there isn't that. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teaching. So we see, why is this mentioned? Just ethics, and then moves on to the great scope. What's the deal? Well, implicitly, Lama Tsongkhapa is talking about the 3 highest higher trainings. Highest higher trainings in 1, ethics. 2, concentration. 3, wisdom. We relate those to the 3 baskets, of course. The Vinaya basket, the Sutra basket, and the Abhidharma basket. And we see that the Vinaya basket is related to ethics. And if we talk about the example of cutting down the tree, if you want to cut down a tree, you're going to need 3 things, kid. If you really want to cut down a tree, and if you really want to cut the root of cyclic existence, kid, you're going to need 3 things. And this, example is used to make us understand how we need the 3 highest higher trainings, and we need all of the 3 highest higher trainings, and how ethics serves as that basis. So, the ethics is like the body that we would need to cut down a tree. We wanted to, so we're using the cutting the tree down on the side of cutting, the body and so forth, but we're using it to understand how we would cut the root of cyclic existence. So we heard Rinpoche talk about this so many times, but I don't think we can talk about it enough, because we really have to ingrain in our mind what this is about and what this means. So we begin with this, if you want to cut down a tree, if you want to cut the root of cyclic existence, you're going to need a strong body, a good stable body, a good foundation. Yes, the dog's been behind me the whole time. You'll need a good stable foundation. She got up there. That's what distracted me during the meditation when I said, oh, okay. I was talking to the dog that was getting up. So you're going to need this, foundation that's stable. If you want to cut the tree down, the body. If you want to cut the root of cyclic existence, you're going to need this stable foundation of ethics, the Vinaya basket. If you want to cut down a tree, you're also going to need a strong arm. If you want to cut the root of cyclic existence, you're going to need concentration, the second highest higher training, which is related to the Sutra basket. So if you want to cut the tree, you have to have a good body, stable, and a good arm. But you can see now, you can't cut the tree. Yeah, maybe like if it's a little tree and you're really good at karate or something, but, this is a big tree. Just a good stable body and an arm, you're not getting the tree down. No way. The root of cyclic existence, just having the foundation in ethics and good concentration, a lot of traditions have that. What's the distinction? What's the distinction? The truth of suchness. You alone taught the 4 Noble Truths, Buddha Shakyamuni. And when we look at what one really needs to do to get rid of the origin of suffering, one needs to have that wisdom realizing emptiness and that final view. So if you want to cut the root of cyclic existence, just calming yourself down, getting your mind calm, and being ethical isn't enough. But Without it, you can't cut the root of cyclic existence. Just like if you just, let's get done with the examples. So you can't cut the tree if you just have a good body and an arm. You can't cut the root of cyclic existence if you just have ethics and concentration. Now, if you then add some kind of sharp, a chainsaw. Let's use chainsaw. It's a big tree. Let's be efficient. So now, if you've got a stable body and a good strong arm and a chainsaw, you can cut that root of cyclic existence. You can cut the tree down. Now, if you just had a chainsaw, could you cut the tree? No. You set it on the ground next to the tree until the end of time. Without the support of the arm and the body, it won't happen. Not possible. Likewise, to cut the root of cyclic existence, you have to have that weapon, that sword, that wisdom, which is in the Abhidharma basket. The wisdom. What is that wisdom? The wisdom realizing emptiness. The emptiness of what? Has to be the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. Can't be it can't be a more coarse or a kind of understanding. Has to be that sword. Not just any sword. Not just any wisdom. Has to be pure, exact wisdom. And if you then are very, very ethical, and we talked about how, having a clear mind and ethics and all of this is so indispensable to getting concentration. You'll never be able to concentrate if you aren't ethical. You'll never get to shamatha. And you'll never, ever, ever be able to calm your mind down enough to look at emptiness and understand this subtle, subtle thing that we've been wrong about since beginningless time, unless you're really calm down, ready to do it, and focused on that and only that, and that being the correct that. So if we want to cut the tree down, we have a good body, we have a good arm, and we have the chainsaw, trees cut down. We want to cut the root of cyclic existence. We have ethics, concentration, and wisdom. We always say you need a union of calm abiding and special insight that serves, that looks at the object of observation of emptiness of all phenomena in order to then eventually be able to directly perceive emptiness. And Shantideva, the guy of the Bodhisattva's way of life, says, since perceiving emptiness is the only way to freedom, what else is there to do? So this is something we need to focus on. And if we want to see emptiness, it's not going to happen just by studying only. We have to have an ethical life, engage in the ethics that abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities, and now we're in the medium scope. So the medium scope, now we're talking about pradamoksha vows. We're talking about those lifetime vows. You see, as we move to speedier ways, the ethics get more and more detailed. We get to the Mahayana path, the teachings for beings of great capacity. Then we have more 18 root and 46 secondary bodhisattva vows. And then if we want to go real fast, then we add on some tantric vows. So we see how ethics is the foundation of everything. And even in the tantric vows, it shows that the other vows are the foundation of everything. So we have to, and this is why it says, grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. They're the root. They're the foundation. They're the body, that stable body that Rinpoche talked about that you have to have. That you can then, if you have a stable body and a strong arm, you could maybe be like someone who had not a stable body and just lifted weights. We could debate that, but I don't think that's really real. You need the stable body and a strong arm, and you need something that can actually cut. So starting with the training in ethics. But what is this wisdom that we need to get to? So why isn't it sufficient just to say, okay, I just have to realize the emptiness of self, of person? Why do I need to just, it just seems like enough. I just have to, there's no selfhood of person. The I, doesn't, that should be enough. Why do I have to bother with everything else besides this self I cling to? Well, the problem is that this self that I cling to has named itself on top of phenomena, which are the aggregates. When we look at the definition of person, it's a being imputed on the aggregates. So if the aggregates are phenomena, and Nagarjuna says that hold on, there is a misconception of I as long as the aggregates are misconceived. When the conception of an I exists, there is action which results in birth. So we want to talk about the origin of suffering. Here it is. Oh, this is me. These are mine. And there we're off to the races. This hand is mine. The reifying view of the perishing aggregates, grasping at I and mine. This is I am me, and this hand is mine. Grasping at this I, and this hand is mine. So somehow we see the aggregates, and this makes us grasp at I. And it says this in Omo Gombar Upsell too. This quote is in there. And Lama Tsongkhapa is illuminating the intent. Talking about how the grasping at the aggregates, leads to this I. Because the I is labeled on the aggregates, on the consciousness. When we look at what are these aggregates, what are we talking about? We're talking about the form, and then all of the other mental things, feeling, discrimination. We feel a certain way, and that makes us, have intention. We discriminate things a certain way, and that makes us then make some decisions about, makes us feel a certain way. We discriminate it. We say, oh, that's like that, and then it makes us feel a certain way about it. And then we have intention, and then from that intention we have physical and verbal action. So we have form, feeling, discrimination or perception, it says in our Heart Sutra, compositional activity, and then consciousness. The main consciousness meaning the main thing, and then compositional activity or formation, I think we call it in our Heart Sutra, compositional activity or formation. That's basically anything that's not, discrimination or feeling or main consciousness. So think about it. When you think about when we do the meditation on the I, is the I the body, the mind? We start to look for it, and we find out we're really labeling it on top of this collection. And then we think that this is my hand. So we're really labeling it on top of that. So if we were to just try to, I heard His Holiness ask, could you see emptiness by just relying on self of person? He goes, I don't know how you do that. And he, looked at his hands and so forth, kind of, the aggregates, the consciousness, the form of me. It seems like I grasp at the I, the self of persons, by relating to that in a major way, by relating to those things as having inherent existence. And then it proves to me I do. And all this stuff out here, then there's other, and then there's all this fancy stuff I do. And this stuff out here then, informs me that it's all that I have inherent existence. It informs me in a way. It says, yeah, all this stuff that you're seeing as objectively real is because you are. And you are, however you want to look at it. And you are. Or because you are. You could look at it in a lot of ways. And we don't see the attribute of the lack of inherent existence at all. We see the attribute which is inherent existence in everything we look at. We see it as having, so we have a wrong consciousness. Deceptive consciousness at all times at work. And that deceptive consciousness that's believing that the I and phenomena are inherently existent, that there's no subjective role in that, is what causes, with these three pathways, so it says there is a misconception of I as long as the aggregates are misconceived. When the conception of an I exists, when there's grasping at the I, when there's grasping at I and phenomena as being truly established, there is action which results in birth. With these three pathways mutually causing each other, without a beginning, middle, or end, this wheel of cyclic existence turns like the wheel of a firebrand. So, when you look at Lama Tsongkhapa's Omagom Varapsel, he says these three pathways are the afflictions, and then karma, and then birth. Afflictions, karma, birth. Are you listening to this? You didn't do so well last time. Right? Okay, so we have afflictions, karma, and birth. And then, in Nagarjuna's other points, we find that, first there's grasping an I and phenomena as being truly established, and then an appropriate attention, then the afflictions, then the contaminated karmas, and then voila, we have cyclic existence. And it turns like the wheel of a firebrand. When you turn that thing around, it's a circle. There are moments going. There's afflictions, karma, birth. Afflictions, karma, birth. But it's moving like a circle. Even though that it seems stages. There's this momentary nature that's causing it just to do this. And we look at the ignorance causing the 12 links of dependent origination. When we look at the first link of the 12 links, we see that ignorance. And, we see ignorance related to karma and its results, and then ignorance related to the nature of reality. And then Lama Tsongkhapa goes on to say that the higher realms are caused by the ignorance related to reality, and the lower realms related to karma and its results. So we have to check that and see what Lama Tsongkhapa means by that. So when this wisdom that we have to realize, this full wisdom realizing emptiness, the emptiness that was taught in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, is the emptiness that has to be realized by everyone, even if you want to just achieve the abiding nirvana. And when we go back to the Buddha's teachings and we see, some of the occurrences. Oh, I see I'm running out of time. That's okay. I'm going to end right here. When we see what went on, and we're like, well, why wouldn't everybody get this or think this? We see hearers, people of the hearer vehicle and solitary realizer vehicle, the individual liberation vehicle practitioners, walk out. The third turning of the wheel of Dharma, they think, Buddha nature they walk out. Like, I think 1,000 or something, just leave. They think, I don't know what he's talking about anymore. It's just teaching nihilism, or he's teaching, a lot of people couldn't handle this. And that's why those steps were made. The Buddha was so kind to give us these steps. So I will end with just one other thing, just because let's always try to keep in I mentioned Saraha, is Nagarjuna's teacher, and we find a writing, and this is written in the Mahayana perspective. So if you have only renunciation and you only want to get out of cyclic existence for yourself alone, then that emptiness will, cause you to achieve an abiding nirvana. But how do you achieve what Buddha has? Because the Buddha is not abiding in nirvana. So let's read what Saraha writes, and then let's end. By entering into emptiness, but devoid of compassion, one will not find the supreme path. By meditating upon compassion alone, one will not attain liberation, but remain in samsara. Let me repeat that. By entering into emptiness, but devoid of compassion, one will not find the supreme path. By meditating on compassion alone, one will not attain liberation, but remain in samsara. The one capable of grasping the unity of the two, how you can see how there can be sentient beings that you need to help that are empty, by being able to figure that out. Okay, that's my addition. The one capable of grasping the unity of the two will not remain in samsara, nor abide in nirvana. Personal nirvana, in parentheses. The abiding nirvana. Now the Buddha has a non-abiding nirvana. The Buddha has bliss, cessation of suffering. No 6 sufferings, 8 sufferings, 3 sufferings. But the Buddha has the bliss because of the compassion, because of the bodhisattva path. So we're going to get into that a little bit more next week. But if you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. No, I'm sorry. Let me start that over. I don't know how that happened. If you're attached to your self-interest, you are not a spiritual... Wow, I forgot. I don't even know how to say this one right now. If you're attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, there is no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. And we have to get rid of all perverted views. What are perverted views? Any view that grasps. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Any kind of grasping, even at a subtlety, even the Madhyamika Svatantrika grasping at things having some nessness, some defining characteristics, even though they negate true existence. Okay, so let's make a mandala offering. It's Thanksgiving mandala offering. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Elder Andrapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge. Any mistakes that I've made in this teaching, may they be purified. I'm sorry. I made them out of my own ignorance. I didn't purposely try to make any mistakes in this teaching. And anything that you heard incorrectly or I said incorrectly and you took into your mind, just erase it. And may this occur. May there be a purification from both of our sides that takes place through relying on the mantra of Vajrasattva. And imagine that you're being purified, that there's a white Om on your crown, a red Ah at your throat, and a blue Hum at your heart. And imagine that the blessings of Vajrasattva, who's inseparable from Kensar Geshe Wandak, are coming and raining down on you and purifying your body, speech, and mind with white Oms, red Ahs, and blue Hums, respectively. Om benza sato samaya manupalaya benza sato zeno bajita dida me baba zutogaya me baba zubogaya me baba anurada me baba savasidi me bracha savakama sucha me kitam shriyam kuruhum ha 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 o bhagavan savatatagata benza mame monka benza baba maha samaya sapa aum ve. May we always be protected by Palden Lamo. Rinpoche said Palden Lamo is our protector. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. Jo Rama Jo Rama Jo Rama Tunja Kalar Jamo Rama Chadacha Tunjo Rulung Jo. May Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings always remain in this world. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samanta Bhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds in that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains. You are the source of all benefit and happiness, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso. May you stay until samsara's end. In all of our lives, may we never be separated from Kensur Geshe Wandak. May we accumulate all of the virtue necessary to keep that relationship intact. May we meet with him or her, whatever emanation we can meet with in the normal worlds, and when we become Arya Bodhisattvas, may we meet with Kensur Geshe Wandak in that beautiful body he will show us of enjoyment. And then when we become Buddhas, may we help him or her relieve all sentient beings of fear and bring them to bliss. Thank you so much, everybody, for your listening. I'm sorry for some of my brain bumbles. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I hope your mind is virtuous. And I hope you figure out how to, achieve the realizations of renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness as quickly as possible. And then you can come back and help me. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. Thanks again. See you.